Let's talk about Chesed. Chesed is the fourth Sephira on the Tree of Life. It's ruled by Jupiter and the color blue. But what happens in that Sephira? When we're reading tarot, we draw a 4. How do we know what's actually happening there? Well, one of the things that I do when I want to think about what's going on in a Sephira more generally is I draw all the cards that are associated with it and look at them together. Because if you draw one by itself, you might think, okay, well, it's about completion and it's about success. And it is. But that's not all it's about. If we look at all 4 fours, we can get an idea of what's happening in Chesed. So the word Chesed means loving kindness. And Jupiter as a ruler, you know, he's a lover, not a fighter, really. He does cause his share of trouble, I suppose, but really he just wants to get along with everybody. And the way that he shows his love is by giving things. He's generous and he is protective in a very positive way. He wants you to feel safe. And that's the kind of energy that we see in these cards. We see that you've got plenty of love. See that you've got your own space, you can rest. I mean, this is a card about rest, so you've got your own space to rest and think if you want to, write your poetry, whatever you want to do. You feel physically safe. There's a place for you to live and to feel secure. And there is this sense of completion. There's a sense of being with family and celebrating something that you've done really well, that kind of a homecoming energy. So that is all with Jupiter. And if we look at all of these together, you get an idea of the kind of generosity that you can experience in Chesed, kind of loving kindness and compassion. And the other thing to do is to think about the major arcana. Now, the interesting thing about the major arcana that are associated with the Sephira is that they can be quite different from the minors. In this case, we have the Emperor, and I don't think he is he's different from the minors, but he really suits Chesed because the Emperor is very much like Jupiter or Zeus. An Emperor is not the same as a king. He's like a king cubed because kings own one kingdom. An emperor rules several kingdoms, more than one kingdom. And in order to do that, you've got to be especially smart. You've got to be especially powerful, and you've got to think about a lot of different things. You've got to be the kind of person that says, okay, if I want to take over this particular area, I could go in all guns blazing and try to make everybody submit by force, or I could go in and make some deals and say, well, if you agree to be in my empire, then you can keep everything the way that you had it before, just as long as you say that I'm the emperor. And that's the clever thing to do rather than just going in and raising everything to the ground. It's a nice balance between force and form. And this is actually a very interesting card too, because it looks ahead to Gevura. And Gevura is a balance to Chesed. You can't really look at Chesed without looking at Gevura, because if you have too much of all those wonderful things in the 4, then you just either want to stay there or you just kind of get bogged down and the energy just dissipates. You know, if you have too much partying or you feel too safe, maybe overprotected, overprotective, you're spending too much time inside your own head, you have too much time alone, maybe too much meditating, you know, you do have to keep that in perspective as well. And maybe, you know, too much thinking about what you don't have in terms of your relationships, or thinking a little bit too much about your emotional situation can mean that you're kind of lethargic. So you need the energy of Gevura, which is the next Sephira ruled by Mars. And Mars loves through discipline. So Jupiter gives things to show love, and Mars restricts them. And he says, okay, that's enough. He says, that's enough wine. He says, now you need to get outside and go talk to other people and kind of get out of your own head, maybe emotionally as well, and start looking for other opportunities, because the 4s are points of rest. They're not stops. There's no point on the Tree of Life where you stop. It's always a moving energy from the top to the bottom. It's like a snapshot. If you imagine the Tree of Life as a movie, and as it's normally working, you can't see the frames. This is an old-fashioned movie. You can't see the frames. And the same thing with the Tree of Life. When it's working, when it's doing its thing, you can't see any of the Sephira. The Tree of Life as a drawing, just, it helps us picture what's happening at all the stages from the beginning to the end. And so you have to look at the beginning and the frame that comes before the one you're looking at and the frame that comes afterwards, or it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really work. Chesed on its own is too much. So you need something to keep it in order, and you can see how that would work. And the same thing with Gevurah. If you have too much discipline, that just kind of breaks your heart. There's no hope. And so you need to have a balance between the two of them. So I hope that was interesting. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.